Here we have Cardano versus the dollar, and we do have something of particular interest right here. Several chances it's had to break below $2. While it did look shaky there from time and time again, I do believe that this one is more or less pulling through based off of the strength of the broad market right here. Of course, if Bitcoin shows any weakness, this thing probably gets, shreked back down to 170 or so. But for right now, I'd still like to see a daily closure above about two and a quarter. If that can happen, I'd be extending targets all the way up to about 2.5, maybe even more than that over time to 265 to 270-ish region. Probably just pulls through towards the prior time after that. In this case right here, looking at the 4-hour, we do have something of particular interest going on right now because we do have what could be considered your first potential higher low. I think it's a little more obvious on a 12-hour right here compared with this low right here at about $2. This one obviously a little bit higher. And then you got the same resistances coming in right around about 230, let's call it. So technically speaking, if you do want to play the formation, that would be a ascending triangle now, wouldn't it? But technically not confirmed as long as you're below about 232. I'd even say a daily closure above 2.25 is probably going to be good enough anyways. And in this case, what would the measured move be looking like if you are going to play a formation like that? Actually back up to about 260 if that were to happen. Probably not in the same day. Probably happens over the next week or two if it's going to happen. And of course, invalidation on this is going to be the same as before. Below $2, especially on a daily closure, that is where this thing starts to fall apart again, back down to 170 to 165 or so. Until then, this thing is more or less weak compared to most of this market, but I do expect that it is going to fall through here. Short-term time frames would confirm that back above about 220, even on an hourly closure. Let's go check it out over here just to see if momentum oscillators agree or not, and let's see what the weekly has. That's still down, but that's the weekly, obviously. Daily will pop back up above 220. Okay, I do like that. 4-hour back up above 220 as well. All right, popping up many times, and hourly above 214.5. Dare I say it's probably going to fall the rest of the market just in a more weaker capacity, and very likely does make its move back up towards those upper levels. Again, invalidation below about $2, but hopefully that was helpful. And there you go for Cardano.